Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the RCT2 reviews streams. Today, we're looking at Bethlehem Steelworks by Saxman. You may remember his name from our Knoebels review, which we did a week or two ago. This is another one of his solo parks, and a definite improvement beyond the initial kind of technical aspects of Knoebels. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. Bethlehem Steelworks refers to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which was one of the kind of centers of industry for a large part of the 1800s and early 1900s up through, say, World War II for its steel production. And this is based off, or this park is based off of a reuse and kind of redevelopment of an old steel plant. In the real Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, there are a couple of blast furnace stacks that were repurposed into an events venue that holds concerts and things. So we're kind of working on that same sort of approach. So let's jump on in. We'll look at the outskirts afterwards, as we typically do. So we come in here and come across the bridge here, and you have your first entry piece, which is a bunch of these repurposed buildings from the actual steel mill. So you have our sawtooth warehouse type building over here, and then some of these buildings. And I appreciate that they're still kind of rough. Like this one's got some broken glass that's been filled in with wood, and you have very different colors of things here. So it's definitely cleaned up and made safe, but it still has some of that kind of historic dilapidated nature of all of this, because once the steel mills kind of closed down and moved out, it definitely impacted the economy of the area, and there's just a lot of heavy industrial waste kind of just left around as far as these structures go. We have our queue lines out here for tickets, passes, guest services buildings, kind of cover all the bases here in one building, which is nice. And then this pretty cool gantry crane on the way through on either side. So you come down here into a main street of sorts with the carousel in the front. So this is the corporation carousel, and kind of terminates at the end with the Bethlehem Steelworks logo here in the fountain, which I kind of like. It's a neat little design. Architecturally, the main street here is kind of typical, like Pennsylvania small town facades, which I like. So we have the Hotel Bethlehem here, and then a number of these little other buildings. The nice thing about this from a just RCT standpoint is we have the variation of the facades, not just one flat surface. So we have the way that this is all kind of stacked and set back. There's a variation in heights. There's a lot of different colors as far as the buildings go. A lot of nice detailed trim. I like the corner post here underneath of the crown molding. It's a nice little detail. And then like the circular planters underneath of the trees. So this is sort of an Americana type look to everything, kind of small town America feel. And there's a little bit of back of house spaces on either side. Typical kind of HVAC ducting and stuff on top of the roofs, just to really give it that extra little bit across the entire thing. We're going to start by going in this direction, so we're going to head over to this side. So first big ride we come to is this is Circulator. This is a custom shoestringed flat ride, like a Himalaya of sorts. A pretty wide queue line here to this guy, and it looks like this is either worked around a repurposed building or is built to kind of mirror the same look as the others. Pretty cool. It's definitely a big ride. I think the challenge with some of the custom flats is that they can often get a little too big, and this one I think may struggle a little bit from that, just a bit. It's like a 6x6 perhaps. But the speed of 18 is actually good. I think a lot of times you see these go too fast, so that's a nice touch there for one. I also like the service entry on the side here, just a nice little realistic detail that was caught in. Turning here to look at the kids area real quick. So what I really like about this kids area is how it takes the architectural nods from all the other stuff around here. So steel roofs and brick bases, a lot of kind of pavilion type structures, and it just makes it bright and cheerful and very much like fitting of a kids area. So I think that is a good trick for most anybody who's doing kids areas, is you really want to keep those same kind of architectural profiles, but you want to brighten it up and just make it fun, make it cheerful, and I mean, almost bright to the point of being obnoxious. So I love the purple path cuts through here. Definitely defines this as a separate area. That is a thing on its own. Bright yellow building calls out all of this. So we've got our little Frogger ride here, super slide, and then here's the Flying Tigers. Another little custom ride as well, which I appreciate. Excuse me. So the pedal cycle also that kind of frames the whole thing, and I like that it goes over the center of the path here, so that while the guests walking below can kind of look up and see all that. And then just a little swing set and some play area here. Also, a little bit hard to activate that in the game, especially at the little rock climbing wall and everything. It might be kind of nice to throw a little invisible path through here just so you can at least have the people moving through it, but I think you can really do either way. Continuing around the back, we have this centrifuge. This is an Enterprise ride on a nice size pad here. A good effort to get rid of the pad underneath of it, the standard in-game pad. So cover it up with the tiles here. It glitches a little bit, so it's always a trade-off as to which way you want to go. But I kind of like the fact that there's an attempt made to get that removed and kind of gone. So here is the auto scooters. Another little bumper cars type ride, and then auto scooters being a specific type of bumper car ride, classic type. Neat looking building. I like this little structure over top here and the way that it utilizes the in-game base roof building for this bumper cars. I think that helps. So continuing along through here, we have another logo for the park, the I-beam logo, although coming from the side, you're going to look at it like an H, so that may be a little bit of confusing, I think, perhaps, but I think if you're here, you kind of know what you're looking at. So this is Rivet. This is a kids coaster. This is a Mylar, E&F Mylar coaster based on figure 8 layout that exists in real life. It's done in Blue Bayou Dixieland in Louisiana. Pretty big for a kids coaster. On the whole, in real life, it's a decent size. In RCT, it ends up getting really long for one, but I think it looks nice, and I like the landscape around it and some of those brick ruins around the whole thing. It's a good little touch because it's kind of boxed in on this side by other theoretically existing buildings. And then I like the minimalistic structure here with the archway over top and everything like that. Would be really nice to get rid of the station platforms, but I do know he ran into the object limit at the end of this, so it's kind of understandable and fair that didn't quite happen. And now we'll move over to this guy. So this is this is called Charcoal. It's meant to be a Vekoma suspended family coaster, which is an inverted coaster, rather than the swinging suspended, but you kind of have to pick and choose what you want to go with. So this one, it definitely works just fine because the track style is a little bit more accurate to what they were doing for the suspended family coasters. And then the trains, you can kind of either use the this variety or the compact inverted coaster, where it's a little more rigid, but it still sits on this kind of a track. I do like this little gift shop here, the big kind of arch opening before we turn and take a look at the rest of this. So cool queue going through here, looking at the forge here and just some of the various other elements, all in this really kind of thick landscape throughout. I really like the brown kind of foliage coming through here, all the different bushes and kind of how thick everything is throughout. All right, so let's ride along with this guy here. So this is a custom Vekoma invert. They made a number of the stock Vekoma suspended coasters, suspended family coasters, I should say, but they've also done a variety of custom layouts too that have kind of become other stock layouts now. So one of the cool things about this is how it cruises over top of the queue line here. Probably not going to have quite that airtime hill here, but I do like how it circles around this drop tower, a little bit off center, but that's fair. And then comes into the brakes. So only one train, which is very plausible for this type of a ride, and looks good. This game stall is neat. I like how it sits on both the diagonal and the orthogonal, and also has some pretty good games details in here. Like, there's a lot to look at. We got our little ladder game type track here, and then the either the toss a ball at the bottle sort of thing, or balloon pop, something like that. I did mention the drop tower here. This is Skyfall. Also another Bethlehem Steelworks logo in the flowers here on the side. Let's turn the corner, and we'll look at this condo ride that's right up against the water. So this is Riverhawk, another shoestring ride here. I like the use of the cars. I know I just released a tutorial for this using the bobsled cars, but this is a good selection too, and honestly, I can kind of take it either way. I do like the look of this one, and the structure is very nice too. It's kind of on the grid versus diagonal like mine is, but a little bit chunky, but I like the look, and using the monorail for the arms also. Again, kind of using these repurposed buildings, the queue line coming through here to all of that space. At the end here, we've got Pile Driver, another little flat ride, just one of the standard models. And then also this kind of nice little seating area with the flowers and the plants above it. So turn the corner, we get to the first of the big coasters. This is one of the original rides in the park. This is Drift Pin, a B&M floorless coaster. Pretty big one at that. So let's actually pick this one up because we're almost at the top of the lift hill and take a look. I like the layout. It follows standard kind of B&M detailing, but still has its own custom feel. Starts with an Immelman over the lift hill, which is neat. Then a loop, Cobra roll underneath the pathway. This is like the only acceptable way to put a path around a Cobra roll, so always nice to see. Back around, up and into the brakes, and hit our block brakes here, which lets us run 3 trains without stacking, which is quite nice. Through a loop, turn the corner, and a corkscrew. Maybe a little bit quick on the corkscrew, coming off of the loop just like that. But this good little figure 8 here, diving into this existing building, and then up into the brakes. Really good layout. Takes up a fair bit of space here, but it has a nice flow to it. Definitely feels very B&M-esque. Like working around the existing structures, the queue line again doing the same sort of thing, and then the actual build or station buildings here with the cool stacks and the ladders and all the little intricate detailing, and then seeing the glass here for the brake run, which also houses the transfer track and everything else inside. So a good look, and I do like this coaster a lot. I like how the color stands off from the tan and browns and blacks. Is really the architecture of this build is pretty muted. So it's the umbrellas and then the ride type colors and everything like that that really helps stand out or makes everything stand out from the background. Here's Grace's. This is a little food shop. I like the terraced seating here, especially this one that's really close to that turn up into the mid-course brakes, and then this guy overlooking out onto the parking lot and everything else. It feels very... I like how it's divided up into smaller sections, so you can get a lot of seating, but it doesn't look like it's too on top of each other, for one. All right, so we will look at this bridge real quick, which is kind of a nice arch and a nice stair step over and down. A pretty wide pathway for kind of a little side path up to this thing, but it would be kind of neat to stand there and see that shoot under for the Cobra roll and back on the other side. But like I said, the Cobra rolls are kind of just begging for that kind of a pathway over top. So let's go back to the center, and we'll take a look at the kind of one of the signature rides in the park. Also, this is another park original. This is Ferrite. So this is built within the stacks that are the blast furnaces that were abandoned and now reused here. So this is definitely based off of the real thing in Bethlehem, and this is similar to what it looks like. That one, like I said, has been reused into an entertainment venue. This one is a little bit better in my opinion because it's got an Intamin coaster in it. So this is a launched Intamin LSM coaster. So we're gonna take a look underground where we have the station here, and we'll see if we can catch this guy Here we go, train 2, taking off, and there we go. Up and over the top hat, using the Premier track, which is kind of nice, low profile. Cool little figure 8 through the top hat, and then around the backside, down by the river, up through the stacks here, helix by the main entrance, and then dive down, and through the stacks again, curving around into the brakes. Pretty good layout, pretty long layout too. No inversions, which I like. Definitely an early, or feels like one of the earlier accelerator type layouts that just has a longer layout to it. But a really good recreation of the structures here. They're just kind of beefy and pretty monochrome for one, but the brown and the gray and everything and just all the different textures works pretty well to call out all the different shapes and parts and pieces of this. Then we've got our queue line coming back through here along the water side, which I like. That's a nice look. And then the sign has, I like the little particle effects coming off of that. So definitely this being the centerpiece and the end of the real end of the main street here beyond the fountain. You really have this, and it's clearly centered and on axis on purpose. Also a nice little gift shop here where you can see the inner bits and pieces of the gift shop. All right. So here we are to the Fall River Shipyard area. So this is the an expansion according to the README file. So we have a couple of different parts and pieces here. So this is the Gutsy Gantry, which is a fun name, for the top spin. Another reused building here that's closed up at the moment. But I like the flames coming out of the bottom here and kind of the debris and things in front of it. But the real signature here is the log flume. So Bethlehem Steel was pretty key in the shipyards and also the war effort, which we'll see in a little bit. But let's take a look inside here as the station. So for one, I love that the station is on a bridge over top of the rest of this whole space. It's got this nice truss bridge here, queue line coming in. So we're going to go up and then go through a number of different trusses here over top of this this bridge, which has a pretty cool shape. Saxman, being a structural engineer, certainly makes sure these are going to be accurate and look good. Go through this little waterfall section, a bunch of gantry cranes and things like that as you wrap around through the different buildings. Coming up into the various like furnace pieces and things like that. We have all the different material or the steel pieces as you go up that lift hill. So a very well themed structure for one. Nice ship, nice here. It's a little boxy, but not too bad. I love the kind of accoutrements to the top and the mounted guns and everything like that. And then here's a hull that's partway in the process of being built as you drop down into the actual waterfall element here. I do love this waterfall U-shaped element around it. It feels like something a park might do just to really accent that drop itself. Drop under this little truss bridge, and then you come out to the end here where we have another gantry crane that has a lot of the raw steel pieces here sitting in the yard, using the railroad tracks here for the actual movement of the gantry crane, which I kind of like. So this is it's a big space and really well themed, probably the best themed ride in the park. But beautiful looking ride, and it does a lot and tells a story, which is cool, and something that's definitely worth thinking through. A little gift shop, or a little restaurant shop here. No table seating, but seating all along the pathway here with the benches and everything. We'll step back out here before we move along. So one of the fun README elements, which you'll read about, is this being Laser. So Laser spent some time at Dorney Park in Allentown, Pennsylvania, before it was sent back to the German fair circuit. Now it's actually in Saudi Arabia, of all places, doing on their own fair circuit over there. But in the Bethlehem Steelworks timeline, Laser, now running his test track, was reacquired and came back home to Pennsylvania and has been set up here. So a pretty nice job recreating this layout, which is tough to do. These loops are really on the diagonal, and it's just a really difficult layout to make feel correct. And I mean, it's definitely has its challenges. I mean, the helix at the back here and things like that. But this helix is great, especially threading the loop and things like that. and the fact that it all sits on the base frame very nicely and very well put together, it looks good, and it definitely shows some effort put into looking at the real thing and understanding kind of how it all went together. So it was definitely done very well. I have a couple of buildings in the back here, more of the reused structures for that station. I kind of like that the ride itself didn't really use much of that. There's some of this that can kind of be assumed as theming put down. If you figure this ride's already coming in one piece and it just plopped down, and it really doesn't have a whole lot of detail behind it unless they want to come in afterwards and theme it. So it's not going to sit on any existing stuff. So I think it's nice that this doesn't have a whole lot of theming to it. But the station platform is gone here, which is a good little detail. All right, so let's jump here into the last area. So this is the Normandy area. Again, like I said, Bethlehem Steelworks was or the steel production in Bethlehem and other cities in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and others were very critical to the war effort, especially making planes, tanks, and etc. So this is Thunderbolt. This is the one of the newest rides in the park. So this is a custom RMC. Has a really cool plane diorama here on the way into the station that you pass. Go through that whole queue line and pick up this guy here on the lift hill. Alrighty, so we're going to have a vertical drop, followed by a pretty big overbank turn here. Nice strong airtime hill up underneath the lift hill, and a roll into the little diving drop here. All these off-axis or off-camber airtime hills. Another roll, another kind of dive down. Really double out and back type cyclone layout. I think this could have believably have been a layout that was redone as an RMC or a ground up. I think either one looks good. A unique inversion here right at the end into the brakes. I like this dive underneath the station as it pops out and pops back in, because the station itself is kind of plain on the front, but it does have that nice detailing. It has the little tower on the side. I do like the arched roof here, using the monster truck track and the wooden coaster track and potentially some other stuff in there, but it looks good and it feels pretty dense. French flag here for the Normandy area and the different colored flowers. I actually really like how the different colored flowers set off in this area. Kind of makes it feel like a little collage of sorts. On the back here we have a fighter jet, presumably a German one, that's broken down and on fire and having a little trouble. Kind of would have been neat to have the queue line wrap through there, but I can imagine there's not a whole lot of space since it's hard to see that, and you roll away from it, so you're not quite going to see that inversion or that theming from that inversion. Something to think about, at least as far as theming placement goes. Have a nice little selection of French-looking buildings here. Some pretty straightforward architecture, but looks good. So this is Normandy Drinks, and just naming the area there. Last ride we have is a nice little simple one here in the back. So this is Panzer going through the Ardennes potentially, or some other forest here, as we have a number of tanks and some various debris and parts and pieces here. So cool little tanks ride for one. The little custom tanks ride. I like that look. Saxman did say he ran out of object space because he had wanted some space over here to expand the park a little bit. Have a concert venue showing a in-progress Billy Joel concert, seeing as Billy Joel's Allentown song kind of sums up the economy and life in Bethlehem just as well. I like here that there's also the second entry. So this is from the back entry from the town itself, as you can come across and head in. You can also see this nice service road coming all the way back through the whole thing to the old stacks here, and then all the rough rock rubble here along the water side. So that kind of finishes off the park itself. So let's we'll back out to the parking lot, and then we'll kind of work our way around and take a look. Parking lot's really well put together. Pretty simple parking structure there, with nice variety of parking spaces, and usage. He's used the double space for the parking lot, or for the cars, because those fit a little bit better in there. I tend to go for one, but that means they stick out a little bit since these objects are 2 tiles deep. You can kind of go either way. Here's pick up and drop off. I really like this planter with the curves and then the little bump out here on either side. So it's kind of an interesting shape for one. And again, having the steel Bethlehem Steelworks logo there in the middle of it also. Have our handicap parking out here, and then this could be employee parking perhaps, or VIP or whatever that may be. More of the little structures kind of on your way in, so you kind of get a taste of all that repurposed structure as you go. I kind of like the mix of moving traffic out here and static traffic here, because it really shows the kind of progression as folks are coming in for the day. It's definitely a little later in the day because we're not stacked way up here, but we can get a lot more traffic in here without having to really pile on so much moving traffic that it feels a little bit rough. So this is a cool big gantry crane element that is taken off of a similar real thing. It just kind of dominates the entrance and is just a super cool entry feature that before you're even into the parking lot, you're really getting this neat kind of massive entry piece that really sets the stage as to what you're going to experience throughout the rest of it. So now we head out into the town itself. There's a little nice fountain here with a memorial in it, and then a Perkins in this little triangle of space, which is a very Pennsylvania thing for all the old folks to come out and enjoy. Nice size semi-truck here, a little bit big from a scale standpoint compared to the other vehicles on the road, but the detailing is nice. I do like that cab as well. Here's potentially a homeless dude hanging out underneath the bridge, and his little fire barrel going on there. And then here you have some abandoned railroad tracks. This is a former line which presumably came into the Steelworks area when it was active. Again, bridges being one of Saxman's strong points with his structural engineering background. I like the archway spans here, break with a truss, a couple more archways over top of the river, and then another one over top of the train line, which we'll look at in a minute, heading off to the other side. So these row houses are all based off of specific buildings. They look pretty nice too. A good variety. They are similar across the board as far as structure goes, but that would make sense that they would all be a similar type look, just in different colors, and they are. So different colored roofs, I like the red roof here, different colored windows, and then just some other detailing like the car that's parked here. Here's a guy that's grilling out back. Here's another guy sitting around his fire pit. And then here's a frat party going on, so kicking frat party, as the ride says, which I think is kind of a cool detail there. So you can see he used a maze for that in all the backside here. And then here's the sorority party in here, which is playing some music, which I know we've got the music off, but music pumping, and they're having a good time. So the frat house and the sorority house lead to the college itself over here. So this is Packer University, which is based off of Lehigh University in the town. So that's Saxman's alma mater, and actually my dad's as well. So I have a nice little connection to this also. Nice little power lines coming along through here. Some good detailing there. Simple but effective. Again, all these row houses just look nice throughout. I think he's done a nice job there. Structure here based off of a real thing. So this is the Hawk's Nest, and then you can also see the Packer University tag there for the restrooms. So let's look at the university itself. Again, based on Lehigh, similar type structures, sort of these Gothic-y type structures here with a lot of nice theming and decoration to them. I think you can tell that towards the end there was a little bit of struggle with the object limit as far as just getting some of the detail in, but I think they look nice. Some interesting object choices too. I think this particular roof looks a little bit over textured compared to some of the other RCT objects, but it's a little bit distracting almost with the color variation, but it does have the slope and it does have that sort of tile texture that you want for that whole thing. But anyway, lots of nice actual structures here as far as the buildings go, and then we have our testing lab here with another semi truck and a couple other little details there, and then you can kind of see all the different pieces and parts because he's done a nice little cutaway on the back side here. I like this detailed lawn in the front, a couple folks playing soccer and out for their smoke break, and then a couple just chairs looking off into the off to the street, and then possibly over here to the park itself. Have our nice church structure here on the side. So this is a pretty big structure, pretty nice structure on that side. Nice little bell tower up top here also. More university elements here with some good detailed buildings. Definitely some tall buildings, but would have been cool too to have a little bit of activation in here. Some shops placed in with the names of each of the different buildings and things like that, just so you can kind of get an idea of it. And then also running the pathways in and out. That's always a nice little detail that helps. And then here's some more of the row houses. These are detached, but similar architectural style throughout. Got the parking meters and all the various detailing of the parallel parking spots along here as you go through. I do like all these little art pieces and sculptural elements that are kind of scattered throughout this entire space. So this bridge here is cable stayed, or I think it's cable stayed, but I could be wrong. Bridge that's based off of the bridge at FIU, Florida Institute of, or Florida University, that collapsed a year or two ago. Unfortunately, killed a number of folks. So this is sort of his tribute to that bridge, structurally fixed, of course, but kind of a nice little tribute there, and a nice looking bridge also. Pretty neat design. I kind of wonder if the park funded that, or if the city also took care of that or not. So last thing we'll take a look at here from a structural standpoint is this train station itself. So Bethlehem in real life doesn't have the train connection from Philly or any of the other major cities, but it's kind of long been proposed. So here's a pretty nice sized train station with the very traditional structure on the front side, the fountain on the corner, and then a 4-platform thing with a couple of different vehicles here. So we have the Silverliner 4 car that's basically made for this this particular map. Got a pretty good speed to it, and I do like how they go down, and both this and the monorail being used as the Amtrak Keystone both use that same line. So it's kind of neat to see them both share the lines. It's kind of nice hacking in that regard. And then just all the little signaling details here, all the overhead wires and everything like that for all the catenary cables and things like that. Have a nice little detailing here with some of the trash elements and different pieces. Give it a little bit of aging and a little bit of a rough look, because this is very clean. Like, all this is a very clean, manicured look, but you would expect that out of a university. So out here in the rail line, it's a little bit rougher. I think this is on the whole a little bit cleaner than actual Bethlehem is, for one. But it's a really nice looking park, and map as a whole. I do like the rowers here. Also, that's a good little touch from a university rowing team, potentially. But that about wraps up our look at Bethlehem Steelworks. Again, there's a lot to see in the map, and dealing with the object limit was kind of a shame, because I know he had some interest in doing some further expansions to this. But what's here is great. Some good coaster layouts, well supported, well designed as far as layout goes. Good architecture as well, and kind of a neat premise as far as the reuse. It kind of almost feels like the old scenario play, when you were given something existing and you kind of had to reuse it and turn it into a theme park. But this was very tastefully done and well put together on the whole. So that's all for today. If you have a park that you would like to see reviewed, or you want to see your own park reviewed, feel free to leave me a message in the comments, and I will take a look at it and add it to a future stream. And I will continue with the RCT hacking tutorials, and certainly other things as well. If there's something specific you'd like to see, just let me know. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the park.